Unit 4, Day 2, 0 and negative exponents. So yesterday we went over exponents, the basics, and today we're going to learn a few new things. So let's start with our 0 power. So if a number is to the 0 power, it is 1. All right, a lot of times students like to say that we multiply those two, but we don't actually. And if you're wondering why, my favorite explanation of why is to look at kind of a pattern that you can find. And so if I go 3 cubed, 3 squared, 3 to the first, and 3 0, this kind of explains it. So 3 times 3 times 3 is 27, and 3 squared is just 3 times 3, which is 9, and 3 to the first power is just 3 itself, which is 3. So if you look at the pattern, how are we getting from 27 to 9 and 9 to 3? Well, we're actually taking 27 and we're dividing it by 3. And 27 divided by 3 is 9. And if you divide 9 divided by 3, that's 3. So if I take 3 divided by 3, well, that's 1. Yeah, and then, so that's kind of my favorite explanation of why. So here we've got 5 to the 0 exponent. That is just 1. Right? Since that 0 is touching the parentheses, everything inside of that parentheses is being taken to the first power, so it's just 1. All right? And right here, the 0 is touching the parentheses, so everything inside of those parentheses turn into 1. 2 to the third power is 8, so that's 2 times 2 times 2, remember? And we're actually multiplying there because it's touching those parentheses. So our answer here is just 8. Some examples that I wish I kind of would have put here would be something like, let's take this. And let's say I've got negative 5 to the 0 power. Okay, the 0 is not touching any parentheses, right? It's just touching that 5. So we're taking 5 to the 0 power, and that negative drops. So that would be negative 1. So there's a difference there. Now, if I had negative 5, to the 0 power, the 0 is touching those parentheses. So there, it takes everything, including the negative, and just turns it to a 1. Okay, so be careful with that negative when you have that. Now for a negative exponent, if you've got x, so a number, x just represents any number, to the negative and has a negative exponent, it means that it's on the wrong side of the fraction line. And if it's not part of a fraction, you can make it part of a fraction. So right now, I would make that over 1. It just means you have to move it to the denominator. Okay, so to get rid of that negative sign, you flip it over the line. All right, and when you flip it over the line, it's no longer negative. So this means that when you move a factor, or a base number, right, from the numerator or the top to the denominator, which is the bottom, or vice versa. So if you go from the numerator to the denominator, or the denominator to the numerator, you change the sign of the exponent. All right. So that means a negative exponent means the base number is on the wrong side of the fraction line. And so we kind of talked about that yesterday, and I'll explain what this means a little bit more. But letter D, 3 is our base number, right? And since that negative is not included in parentheses, like notice how it's not written like that. It's just negative 3 to the negative second power. So if you remember that from yesterday, it's the opposite of 3 to the negative second power, all right? That negative 2 is only touching the 3, all right? And so it means it's on the wrong side of the baseline. It's on the wrong side of the fraction line. It's not part of a fraction, but we can make any number part of a fraction, right? We can put any number over 1. So it's saying, hey, you know what? You're on the wrong side of the line. You need to go down to the denominator. So 1 is going to stay. Actually, it doesn't really matter where you put the negative. It could be anywhere. All right, and I'm going to write 3, so to get rid of that negative sign, I flip it over the line. Now 2 and 3, since 2 is the exponent of 3, it can't leave its side. So if 3 moves, 2 travels with it. All right, and now I need a number to put up there. I can't just leave it blank. Now 0 would make every single number 0, so that makes no sense. So our filler number is just 1. Because essentially I could say that I'm multiplying that by 1, right? Because it doesn't change anything. Now we still have an exponent. We don't really want to leave an exponent unless it's something like 5 or 6. If it's as small as 2 or 3 or 4, we want to go ahead and solve that. So -1 and 3 times 3 is 9. So our answer there is 1/9. Okay, moving on to E. So this -3 is saying to the 2, hey 2, you're on the wrong side of the fraction line. Right now it's on the bottom, right? So if I want to flip it to the top. Okay, so to get rid of that negative sign, I flip it over the line. So instead of writing down the bottom, I'm going to write it on the top. Remember, 2 and 3 don't leave each other's side. So if 2 move, 3 goes with it. All right. Now I don't really need a number in the bottom, right? Because I just took everything out. If there's nothing there, it's okay. I could put 1 if I wanted, right? But I don't really need to. So I'm just going to know that 2 to the 3rd power over 1 is just 2 to the 3rd power. Well, that's 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. Don't say 6, that's adding. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. All right, so ready? Do we have a negative exponent? Nope, we do not have a negative exponent here. So there's no flipping over the line. We've got a negative out front, which is okay. That 3 is touching everything inside of the parentheses, so we're going to take -1/2, oops, times -1/2 times -1/2. Right? So we just multiply straight across, right? Numerator times numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator times denominator. And let's try and figure out if we're going to have a negative or a positive answer. So negative times a negative, those two make a positive, but then a positive times a negative. Remember, if we've got an odd number, our answer is going to end up negative. Okay, so we'll have a negative answer there. And essentially, if you're a little confused by that, we're taking this. So these two are going to cancel out and make a positive, but I still have that negative. And a positive times a negative is a negative. Okay, 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. And 2 times 2 is 4. And 4 times 2 is 8. So that's our answer there. So I wanted to trick you to make sure you're paying attention. There's no negative exponent there. All right, so now we've got 3 times 4 to the -2nd power. Well, 3 doesn't have a negative exponent, right? It's going to stay right where it is. But 4 to the -2nd, that -2 is saying, hey, 4, you're on the wrong side of the fraction line. So there's two different ways of thinking about this. I could put this entire thing on over a fraction. Okay? This is the only thing with a negative exponent, so it's the only thing I'm going to move. So draw that new fraction. Again, 3 does not have a negative exponent, so it's going to stay in the numerator. And 4 squared goes down below. Okay, to get rid of that negative sign, I flip it over the line. And let's not leave this, so the square, so 3 over 16. 4 times 4 is 16. Okay, now we've got variables, right? That's okay. It's actually easier because I don't have to do any work to the x. I'm just going to leave it x. However, we do have a negative exponent, right? So remember, x and 4 don't leave one another. But that -4 is telling the x, hey, you're on the wrong side of the fraction line, right? So we've got to put it over 1. And right now it's on the numerator, so we want it on the denominator. So to get rid of the negative sign, flip it over the line. Now, what could we use as a filler? What's that filler number up top? A 1. And actually, that's my answer. I can't go any further than that. Okay, and right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw a new fraction line because I'm like, okay, I'm already dealing with a fraction. I don't have to make it a fraction. 2. I could start this with 2. Does 2 have a negative exponent? Nope, it does not. So it's going to stay right where it is, right? I'm not going to switch 2 because if I put it down, if I flip it over the line, then I'm giving it a negative sign. And I don't want to do that. Now to get rid of this negative sign, where do I need to write it? Up top. And so since these two are dividing and I put it up, I'm switching it, I'm making it opposite. We're going to multiply that. So it's 3, and remember that 2 cannot leave its side. It is 2, right? No, it's 1. So now that -1 becomes +1 because I flipped it over the line. Okay, and I really don't need anything in the denominator. It's over 1, so it's just the numerator, right? If 1 is in the denominator, I can just leave it there. So I'm just going to ignore that 1 in the denominator. So now I've got 2 times 3, because 3 to the 1st power is 3. And that's 6. All right, now J. J is kind of challenging. J is kind of something more than I need to teach you, but it's kind of great because it's good to see. So 2, that -2 belongs to this entire thing, right? So it's saying, hey, 1, you're on the wrong side of the line. hey, 2, you're on the wrong side of the fraction line, right? So these really just swap places. Okay, so to get rid of this negative sign, we flip them both over the line. So that means 2 is now in the numerator and 1 is in the denominator. So that's just 2. All right, and over here, draw that fraction line. Okay, y, ooh, that is a negative exponent. We want to flip that over the line, right? So we want to write that on the denominator. And z to the negative third, that has a negative, and we want to switch that, right? So I'm going to write z on the top, and to get rid of the negative sign, I flip it over the line, so it's no longer negative. And y is also no longer a negative exponent. All right, that's my answer. That's as far as I can go with that problem right there. And right here, okay, now we're throwing in that 0. Anything to the 0 power is 1. So 8 becomes 1, and 4 does not have a negative exponent. So we're done right there. All right, and on letter M, the only thing with a negative exponent is that x. So the only thing I'm going to flip is that x. I don't need the 1 up top if I move the x up there, right? So x squared and y to the 5th. I can, right? 1x squared, it's no big deal. But my answer is done there, right? And right here, so no negative exponent. Okay, so I don't have to flip anything over the line because there's no negative exponent. Okay, so 5 cubed, remember that's 5 times 5 times 5. And remember that 5 times 5 is 25. And 25 times 5 is 125. Times, 5 to the 0 power is 1. And so 125 times 1 is just 125. And here we go. We've got a 0 exponent and we have a negative exponent. So I see that negative. I'm just going to draw this with my fraction. I know that I'm probably going to have a fraction or moving things around my fraction. So I'm going to put the whole thing over 1. Okay, we can take this one exponent at a time, one term at a time, one number at a time. 7 to the 0 is 1, right? And then I'm multiplying. X to the 5th. Is there a negative exponent there? Nope. X and 5. No negatives. I'm just going to keep that just like that. And y to the negative 8. Ooh, that has a negative exponent. So that negative 8 is saying to the y, hey, you're on the wrong side of the line. So we're going to flip it. And we're going to write it in the denominator. And that's all I can do. Okay, another way to write this would be x to the 5th over y to the 8th. All right? Now we've got these. I'm going to do this on a separate video.